Well, first of all, thank you ever so much for tuning in again to another Saturday night PD chat show with our resident panel, Pete Cater and Rob Bryan. Give us a wave, guys.
Hey.
And our very special guest from over the pond is Mr. Todd Sucherman. Todd, welcome.
Hey,
Yay.
thank you, gentlemen. Great to be here.
Todd is in the house.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Happy Saturday.
Cheers.
As I say, for you watching out there, if it's new to you, it's basically an evening of just drum chats. We're very relaxed. You have to get yourself a drink. There's nothing new on TV, so this is brand new material. We don't even know what we're doing most of the time. So please just sit back, relax. Answer any questions in the comment box below. If you are watching on replay, please just put hashtag replay, so then obviously you can actually comment and we'll see it afterwards as well. But please just fire away. While I'm just basically doing all the stuff. When we got to discussing what we're actually going to talk about today, it's one of those things where it's popped up quite a lot, and it's creativity. So I'm going to open the question to all these guys because obviously, you know, these amazing guys we've got here. But say, how do we, as musicians, how do we keep our playing fresh? And it's like, you know, time after time, we're doing the same gig, weeks on end, months on end. You know, when we do the tour, how do we keep it fresh for ourselves and our audience? You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like, we are playing, you know, do theatre shows, you know, so you're doing sort of big tours, you know, you're in a band, in a set list kind of thing, and you literally physically do it every single night and the same thing over and over again. How do we keep that fresh? So Todd, I'm going to open up to you first. How do you keep your playing fresh, your audience entertained? If they see you, you know, consecutive nights, is it going to be different or is it going to be exactly the same?
Well, if you'd allow me a few minutes here, because I have a couple different things regarding this topic, because I'm in a band that sold 30 million records before I was even in the picture. So my job with those guys is I have to make that music come alive for an audience that is somehow expecting to relive their glorious misspent youth, perhaps. But I'm a different human being. No, you know, you could line up a million guys playing boom, whack, and it's going to feel differently. John Panazzo was a very interesting drummer insofar as he was a very active player, but had limited technique, sort of like, and I mean no disrespect with when I say that, it's sort of one direction in that Keith Moon sort of territory, a lot of activity, but not a tremendous amount of technique. So they were interesting templates for me to try to do my own thing with, but the flavor has to remain the same. Again, they sold a lot of records before I came around. But what happens to me in my mental movie of doing this now for 24 years, to avoid what I call the Groundhog Day effect, where it seems like, didn't we just play the song? Didn't we play the song? You know, with rock music, you have to paint the Mona Lisa the same way relatively every night. Whereas jazz, you never want to do the same thing the same way twice. So it takes a different set of a mind space and a consistency to A, be okay with that, B, do it willingly, C, realizing that there's people there that have never seen the band play before, or that there's someone that hasn't seen me play the drums before. So that helps keep it fresh for me. I can very much remember when I would buy a ticket to see Phil Collins, you know, Genesis, or Steve Smith play with Journey, and I'm a kid, and I buy that ticket in June, and then the concert's in October, and October 4th is finally here. I imagine maybe there's some kid that's feeling that same way about me, and that helps me kind of be inspired to play my best and to try to play better than I did the night before. But you do have to have your thinking, if you're in a situation like that where you're playing music that has parts that need to be addressed, there's certain aspects like what I just outlined that you have to think about so you don't get crazy or stale or start to phone it in. And that's something that I feel very proud with coming from the top down from my band, is that there's a certain amount of professionalism and leaving it all on the stage, whether we're playing in a hot, gross field in Nebraska or playing New York City. The people in Nebraska deserve the same show that people in New York City get. And so that has been sort of the way it's always been, and them leading by example as my bosses and the elders in the band, for me to follow that. I'm 20 years their junior. I'm never going to be the one that phones it in on stage, never, because they're not. And those guys are, 66, 7 years old, and they're running around and singing and playing their heads off. So that inspires me to do the same in that particular, with this particular group.
Yeah, great. Pete, because obviously you've been on like many a show, and obviously I can remember our dear old Gary Alcock hiring you on the old QE2, and obviously that was the same every single night, all that kind of stuff, and obviously loads of different other shows as well. But I just remember him talking about that. How do you keep every night? If you're playing the same thing every single night, it's like
well, I think Todd makes a really good point here, and it's the whole thing of expectation. We go out, we're on the road, you have a good day or a bad day, the traffic is good, the traffic is bad, you get to the theater on time, you get to the theater a little bit late. But for the people who put their money down 6 months in advance with this whole thing of expectation, you've got to do it for them. And it doesn't matter how, what else is going on in your life. You could be having whatever kind of problems that we all have to deal with to a greater or lesser extent, which is just a part of being alive and being a working musician. But when the lights come up on the stage and it's 7:30 or 8 p.m. or whatever time your show kicks off, you've got to give it everything for the people who have invested in you and have taken the time out to come and see you. Because that's the quid pro quo. That's the exchange. That's what you have to give them back. And for me, I just want to play. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it might be a small venue with a trio or with a singer, or it might be a theater or a larger venue. I just want to play my best for the people who have invested in me, and give them the best possible experience that they can have.
Yeah, great. Just there, we've got a few shout outs. Hi, Martin Ollie again. Josh, hello. Mike Tubman's there. Joe Morris from Preston, hello. Matthew Devonish, some regulars coming back here. Charlie Smith, hi Charlie. Simmy D, everyone knows Simmy D if you come to the Palace Drum Clinic. We just seen his Palace countdown, so it's fantastic. Tim Mackerel, Keith, Emma, hello. So Rob, you've obviously you've just finished the world tour and you're waiting to go back on another leg of it once we all get back into it. Obviously, jumping, we've all done that kind of like, on the plane, on the bus, a different venue, all kind of stuff. Does your, obviously everyone has that set list that you have to do, so you have to play. Obviously, we discussed about it just recently. Is audience a big factor? It's like when you sit down, because obviously, different parts of the world. I can remember, it's like, going out, I think it was Finland, so only for 4 days. They were absolutely crazy, and I loved playing in front of them. And then it's like meeting them afterwards. We weren't doing a heavy metal gig by all means, but they were like so into their heavy metal and everything else. You think, you've just come to see us do this, and but they were just so loving it, and so the energy were coming off them was fantastic. Do you find that basically? Does that keep your playing fresh as well?
Yeah. I mean, definitely different territories. They very different sort of reactions and mentalities to how they're going to behave as an audience. And sometimes you can play in a city that's maybe only 200 miles away and they went nuts. And then the next night you're playing, 200 miles away and they're just taking a while to warm up. I mean, the applause is there, obviously, whether it be arena or a theatre, but it's still there, but, and the cheers. But there's just something about it, you look at the sort of bass player up on the riser and it's like, we're going to have to try harder. But the thing is, like the other guys have said, that's part of the deal. And the artists I'm working with doing these kind of tours, it's not a jazz gig, and it's fixed stuff. And like Todd said, I'm sort of recreating drum parts that have been around for 30 years, played by other drummers, you know, Manu Katché and people like that. And I've got to try and bring my own thing to the table when and deliver. And I think I saw an interview with Ian Pace, who said that he always remembers how it felt when he first played a snare drum at 10 years old. And like the guys have said, he tried to recreate that every night, even if he's had the worst time. Just try and get to the gig, and remember, those people have paid to come and see you, and you want to give them 150%. So, I mean, everything the guys have said, I completely agree with 100%. And I think the discipline is something that a lot of drummers really enjoy, because, you know, we shouldn't be seen as the backbone, because it should be everybody's, you know, job to keep time and keep the feel. But, you know, they always kind of look to us. And it's really kind of sharing that out. It's just making sure that you can really, you know, deliver when you have to. And, you know, there's no point playing you suddenly feel like playing a different feel on a song because you feel like it. The singer's not going to appreciate that. She expects, or he expects, the same thing every time as a cue for the band. And that kind of discipline, I think we as drummers get into. We like to lead from the back, but not to overpower. And I think that's a very wonderful thing, and I take that on board every time I play. And then that adds to the feel of the band, makes the band feel good, the singer's happy, everyone's happy on stage, and that projects to 5 people, you know, or one man and his dog, or 50,000 people. I think that's the thing, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. A few shout-outs before we go on. Hi, Phoebe. Hello. Rodrigo's back from Iceland. Hello again. Mike Wilson, Sharon Roll from I hope. Todd, say that for me.
That's easy for you. I
can't say it for some reason. Over from the US. Anthony Sargent, hello. Dave Forrest is watching. Sharon Elizabeth, fantastic. I've got some fantastic. Martin just said, I was resident back gig in the 70s and got a bit repetitive, but I was told back then a good advice to treat every song as if it's the first time you ever played it. How true is that? Well, pretty true, I suspect. Todd, would you, every time you go out Styx, is that basically every time you pick that, you know, that song that comes on, that intro, is that the first time in your mind you're playing that song?
Well, I mean, my cliche answer is, well, you know, what's your favorite song in the set to play? I say whatever song I'm playing at the time, because I mean, I try to actually treat each song as, I don't think of it that it's the first time I'm playing it, but I think of it that I'm really into this. I want to play this well. I want to have a spirit. If it's an up-tempo song and has a spirit of fun and urgency, I want to inject that, because you know, that positive energy, like you were talking about, you know, getting off with the band, making sure everything's cool. I'm supporting the band. Everybody's cool, and onward.
Yeah.
You know, when you have that, that's a very contagious thing. That positive energy is contagious. So is hating everyone in your band and just ever standing there looking at your shoes. That can be contagious too.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to go the other way in the land of positivity. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm trying to live in the present moment and play the music to the best of my abilities. I have too many plates spinning up here to get lost in deeper minutia of thought. I'm trying to attach myself to this piece of music and make it happen in the living, breathing organism that it is as each song in the set goes by.
Yeah. Well, a couple of highs. D. Marcus Young from Devon. I just read Anthony Sargent. Rob's been to the hairdressers, lockdown barbers.
Yeah, and my beard's gone as well. It's all going. It's all going.
It's just falling out. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's Pete. With say you've got your big band out, and you have that kind of, like, you know, we've talked about, you know, what you do is, like, you know, trying to get your money's worth. Do you say that to the people in the band, if they're not actually, like, you know, giving their all, and you can hear that, so it's a bit like flat? Because obviously, you know, I don't want to say, but, you know, Buddy was notorious for basically really, you know, to his band, but obviously you're not Buddy, you know, you're a nice person, you know, on stage as well.
Well, Buddy was a nice person.
He was a great person, but he was an addict, wasn't he? So, like, you know, to get perfection all the time.
Yeah, do you know what? He was a lot kinder to the musicians in his band than Fable and Folklore perhaps has kind of, you know, generated this slightly false perception. My for many years, my second alto player was a guy called Bob Martin, who was in and out of Buddy's band for between 1970 and 1975. And he said, Buddy was so, he bought him a horn when he didn't have any money. Have a look at some of the things that Rick Stepton says, who was came in on the jazz trombone chair and then went to the lead trombone chair. Buddy was a taskmaster, but he was fair.
Yeah.
And I run my band in a very different way because I'm in a different position. I generally use older musicians. My guys are like they're not straight out of college. They're guys who are in the studios and in the theaters in London, and I just I book them because I admire their ability and I respect them as people, and I like their characters as well. I like big personalities in my band. Don't give me 14 yes men on stage. I don't want that. I like people who who will stand up and say what they have to say.
Yeah.
I'm still in charge.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we need Todd. We need to get Todd over to the UK and play some big band for us. I think that would be a very cool thing to make happen.
I would love that. I haven't read a piece of music in a long time. I would need the music sent to me first. I'd be like, oh my goodness.
As soon as we go off air, I'll email you some charts. Get working on them. Get working on it right now. By the time this is all over, I think this would be a really cool thing to make happen. Actually, I would like you to do that.
I would love to do that. But it's been a long time since I played with big band, but I've done it.
Yeah. Well, funny you should say that. We actually, at the Palace Drum Club, is actually trying to get Todd over. We were meant to see Todd in the UK in October this year, but unfortunately, because of everything that's happened, we're looking to next year now. But we're looking to get Todd over. Todd, you're excited about coming over because I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. And you said you feel quite home in the UK. When was the last time you was over here?
I played the London Palladium last June. So right. I was over for 2 days, actually 3 days.
Yeah.
The flyover day, the 1 day to acclimate, and then we played the Palladium, and then flew to Oslo and did a couple dates in Europe. So that was the last time I was over. The time before that was I did one drum clinic. I did Pearl Day in Guildford with Maddie Brown and Gary Husband in October of 2018. Boy, was it the London Drum Show in 2014? Or I did a bunch of clinics in 2014. I know Glasgow, Cardiff, Manchester. That may have been it.
Yeah. Well, when Todd comes over, maybe we should sort that out then.
I think we set the challenge right here.
Let's
do this thing.
Yeah. I'll go and warm the crowd up for you, then you can play your heart out. That's fine. Hi, Connor. Connor's here. Guys, listening out there, if you want to ask any of the questions or just basically submit a comment kind of thing on sort of how you get over your kind of I suppose stuck in a rut kind of thing, gig wise, everything else. Because obviously, there's a lot of people basically just, they are out there, doing the functions and everything else, and they're serving a fantastic purpose for us, all the different functions that happen. Do you treat the same gigs exactly the same, or do you basically just have that energy to go, this is a great one, I'm going to basically play this with my heart out like the first song? But please put your comments in. And obviously, like the page as well, and then you can basically keep up with all the things going on. Rodrigo, the first time watching Buddy Rich was in 1994. Blimey, he was from the grave, wasn't he? My drum teacher showed me. It basically showed him on VHS. There, I should read all the question first, shouldn't I? Really? Tom, hi Tom Langs, how you doing? Question for Todd from Charlie Smith. Todd. You're known as a great sideman, with Styx especially, in the same way Simon Phillips was into Toto following Jeff Porcaro. But how do you find the balance when playing older tunes between the original drum parts, but also adding your own personality to them? Playing theatre tribute gigs myself, I've always a fine line to walk, getting the sound as well as having the room to express yourself as a player. But you, in particular, have a knack for getting it just right. Hello, Howard. So that's a great question, Todd.
You know, I'm fortunate that I'm in the actual band, so that gives me a little bit more liberties to do my thing while still retaining the flavor of the song. When you go see a tribute band, you're by and large expecting to hear things being recreated exactly like the record. So it's a little bit of a tighter, not as much free range there. It has to be the record. So I can play things that are like the record, but maybe might be a little hipper, might be a little denser, that only my drum brothers and sisters or astute listeners would be able to decipher that there's more going on there. But for the average layperson that buys a ticket, I don't want to yank them out of their dream. You know what I mean? So if they bought a ticket and a song comes on, and the guy who bought the ticket used to drive around with his buddy who's no longer with us, no longer on the planet, and that song means something to him. If I start putting in a bunch of obvious look at me things in there, I'm yanking that guy out of his experience. And he might not particularly be enjoying it. So what I have to do has to be in that context. But the guys have always given me the freedom to play what I want. They've never once told me to play this or don't play that in 24 years. So I feel very fortunate that they have had the trust and faith in me from the very beginning to let me do what I do. But yeah, there is something special to me when I'm playing something from one of the records that we created, and I created the drum parts, because that feels a bit more of a representation of truly who I am as a player.
Yeah. Same actually question to Rob, but obviously not with Styx or Toto. You've obviously you do a lot of studio, and obviously you curate your own parts, don't you? To the tracks, and obviously, how much weight when you're going on the road do you have to sort of embellish those a little bit, or do you have to physically stick to what's on the album?
Usually, stock place you'd go to first is play, exactly as the album, and then sometimes, the singer will go, "Hey, look, that's a bit dry there. Can you give us a da da bosh?" And it's like, well, on the album, I just sang straight through it. Yeah, well, give me something. It's live now. And when I worked with Susie Sue, she was like that. So I had to reproduce all Budgie's drum parts. And when you're in Susie and the Banshees, you've got to reproduce Budgie's drum parts. There's no point playing Happy House and some of those songs without those token things being in there, because they are the song. Sometimes the drums were the song.
Yeah.
So, I have to go in and have to recreate that. And as Todd said, there's no point me trying to say, Susie says, "Oh, you might recognize this one. It's called Spellbound or Happy House or whatever, or Christine." And I suddenly do something different. And they're like, "What?" There's like 30 years under the table, they've had of this song. All of a sudden, this young guy's coming in. So, really important, I always think, firstly, to play it as the record, and then either ask the artist, or they'll turn around and tell you and say, "Look, hey, this is like, let's go to the ride symbol." We don't like rides. No, not in the studio, but for live, let's bring it, give it some air, put some ride on it. And I'm happy to go with that. So my go-to thing is never to presuppose. I'll either ask first. And if I get a little feeling, I'll tell you once, I did the biggest schoolboy blunder. We were doing a festival with Susie, and me and the bass player on a track called Israel, we both fell on a certain place. We felt 1, 2, 3, bah, bah, and then back in. It doesn't exist. It doesn't live on the song. And for some reason, all my years of playing, I thought, this is a good idea. Let's put it in. So this one gig, me and the bass player, 1, 2, and he's like, dum, dum, and I'm like, bah, bam, the two chinas each side. Brilliant. On the way back to the hotel in the coach, Susie's having a few drinks, and we're all having a bit of a laugh, and she went, "Oi, you two back there." And we were like, "Yeah." She said, "What's all this jazz?" I won't say the word. "What's all this jazz you're putting in?" We were like, "Sorry." She said, "Don't do it again." And it was gone. And it was just like a moment. We were just like, "Oh my God, teacher was listening." She actually. So yeah, so I let my guard down once. I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, Joe Morris says, "Rob, you did a great job with Susie." So there we are.
Good best.
Question. Pete, can you enlighten us on this one if you can? One of the this is from Martin Ollie. So one of the bands I play is a tribute band. There's the fine line sometimes of being yourself, and at the same time being authentic to the original sound and style. Now, obviously, tribute acts and all that kind of stuff. But I think we've hit on it, kind of thing. But when you're playing, it's like, iconic tunes, that people know, so like in your big band stuff, do you try and stick to, what people obviously know, or is there any kind of peak caterisms that you do to make it, it's like, I suppose, fresh for the listener?
Can you be more specific? Give me a for instance.
Oh, I don't know. Well, how many tunes is there? Do you play Big Swing Face?
Well, okay. If you want to talk about Buddy's repertoire,
Well,
'cause
I'm just thinking. So just it's quite a site. So many tunes, isn't there? Yeah.
yeah, I spent a lot of years doing concerts, playing night after night of that repertoire, and there were two things of Buddy's that I would always play the same as he did, and one was the 4-bar break in Love for Sale before it modulates into D flat concert as the final key change, which is actually, I always thought that was a bit of Buddy's dry humor, because what he actually plays on the record is the same 4-bar break that Maurice Purtill played on American Patrol with Glenn Miller in 1941, but faster and cleaner. And the other thing of his that I always used to replicate exactly was a thing on that arrangement of In a Mellow Tone, where he would catch all the cymbals in the penultimate bar. The rest of it was just my playing adapted to suit that style of music. I never concerned myself with the specifics of what he had done, because why would you? Nobody's ever going to play that any better than he did. So other than those two very, very identifiable motifs, I would just play the drums in the way that felt right for that particular repertoire. And that's how I approach everything. I just take what I know and adapt it and tailor it to whatever it is that is required to be played. And it could be anything. It could be Buddy Rich big band music. It could be Glenn Miller music. I've just recorded an album of that for somebody. It could be hard bop. It could be soul covers. Anything at all. It's just about taking what the music requires and blending it with who you are and finding a nice middle ground between what is kind of laid down in the lore of how that music is supposed to sound and who you are too.
Well, as I say, just on that, Anthony's saying, I used to be in a Queen tribute band many years ago, and I winched when I think how much I overplayed at the beginning. By the end of the time, I was almost sounding like Roger Taylor. What's to say? It's if you want to sound that tribute, you are going to that. One quick question I've got is a long one for Todd, but I want to open this. There's a nice one actually from Michael. Hi, Michael. Do you have your cymbal so high for ergonomics or because it looks good? Who's going to answer that one? Todd, you have many cymbals.
I used to have my cymbals up a lot higher than I do now, so I like the separation from the microphones. And as I've gotten older, everything has come down. So everything's basically eyebrow level now. That's the highest anything is. I told a story, and it's true, and every now and then someone will repeat it back to me. When I did Brian Wilson's first ever solo tour in 1999, and I recommended a female singer for the gig who I'd worked with a couple months prior, who we fell in love with each other on the rehearsals for the tour, and she's been my wife now for 21 years. But I couldn't see her where she was on the stage when we got to the stage plot. So I raised my china, which was right here, up to the heavy metal sort of high in the air, just so I could have a sight line with her. And I kept my china up there for many years because of that. But then, oh my God, you start getting getting close to 50, that's got to be right there.
I can remember it's like when I was learning, because I was like growing up in like the 80s, when that the kits, you basically used to sit very low and nobody could see you behind your kit because everything was, because obviously power toms and everything was up there. So that's it. And then over the years, I basically, you can't, you see me over the kits because the kits got smaller. It's like, you can't be bothered to sort of go up here anymore and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how, I suppose gear as well helps as well, doesn't it? So everything's gone a bit more compact and all that. So it does help. We've got hi Steve 5, Tony Aspie. Hi, nice to see you. Right, long question. Where was it? For Todd. Jake Perrott. Todd, lovely to see you. Apologies for the long question. Don't apologise, don't worry. One thing I really love about your playing is your ability to string ideas together, fluidity. Feels like the one in Red Storm, for example. It's one thing knowing how to perform phrasing ideas, flam combinations or double bass ideas, double stroke rolls, accents, permutations, etc. But freely moving between these ideas cohesively and musically seems to be a whole separate mountain to climb. Did you go about developing an ability to move between different phrases ideas, sticking rudiments and subdivisions freely in an improvisationary way? Actually, yeah, I'm not apologising, that was very long. But no, it's great. Great question, Todd.
Yes.
There we go. Good. Right, moving on.
I have to expound on it just a little bit. I mean, look, when we're playing ideas, you put rudiments and ideas together, just like you'd string sentences together in speaking. When we're speaking to each other right now, we're not thinking about the actual letters that spell the words that we're saying. We just have an idea of what we want to say, and sometimes we don't even think about the words. We just have the idea and we say it. So I think any musician would want to get that conversational on their instrument and have that level of fluidity. So in learning stickings, rudiments, compound stickings, I would practice stringing one idea to the next. In the song Red Storm, which he brings up, there's a lot of kind of the centerpiece in there are linear phrases in 3s and 5s, which I studied with Gary Chafee in 1988. Take away from those ideas for a while because I thought that everyone played them.
Yeah.
And that the drumming police would go, oh, dude, that's page 11 of Chafee's volume 3 book. And then no one was really playing these ideas, not in the way that I was seeing them, envisioning.
Here it is.
So yeah, so there you go. And so I said, well, gee, if no one's using these ideas, don't mind if I do. And and that's what the whole 4-bar long 16th and 32nd note drum lick is in the Red Storm.
Right. It's one from Todd. I think you might have answered this already, but Todd, Connor Brun. Thanks for doing this. I loved your appearance on Drumeo and especially your drum solo, which was so musical and also quite based on rudiments. How important are rudiments and learning every single one of them? One question. Any other tips for improving the left hand? 2 questions to get strong as the right. We could spend this a whole week on that one. But the first one really is how important are rudiments and learning every single one of them? Now we can open up to all of them because we're quite rudimental nuts, I suppose, aren't we?
Well, let me answer the second one first. Look at what Pete's doing. Pete's just got one stick and he's working on the left hand.
Sorry.
No. That's what you do to get your left. If you're a right-handed drummer, your left hand is going to be most likely weaker. And when I was, in my teenage years, I would come home from school, and if I was going to kill a half hour, an hour watching the end of the Cubs game or television, I would pick up one stick and a pad, and I'd go, okay, it's the 7th inning of the Cub game. I'm watching the rest of the game, just left hand, one stick. And so I would do things like that. As far as the rudiments, again, if you get your doubles and your singles together to a high degree, that's going to make exploring the rudiments a lot easier because most anything we're going to do on the drums is a series of singles and doubles. So if you get those just really screaming, it will be easier and more exciting to examine the rudiments. Again, if you think of the rudiments like our alphabet, that's going to help you. And then hear the music in it. Where most drummers, where a lot of drummers go wrong, is that they learn these things and then it sounds like the resuscitation of a learned behavior. But if you listen to the two-note melody, anytime you play a right and a left, now you have a two-note melody on a snare drum, which is why singles only sound like singles, doubles only sound like doubles, a paradiddle only sounds like a paradiddle, and an inverted paradiddle only sounds like an inverted paradiddle. When you change the sticking, you change the articulation, you change the sound. To the layperson, it might sound like a succession of 16th notes, but to the musical listener, there's going to be a musical difference. So ultimately, I think, technique is a means to an end, and the end is, how does it sound? So I don't get too caught up in the minutia of technique after doing this as long as I have. I don't care how the sausage is made. I want to eat sausage. How does it sound? That's the ultimate thing that I want to get to, and let my ears decide and guide me to how I'm playing and what I choose to play.
Great. Pete, you've got you've just answered Pete's question really, so the permutations, haven't you, really? From your... Are they still on offer, Pete? The book and the DVD, yeah?
Yeah, I may have one or two still kicking around in the in the stock room somewhere. I think maybe
yeah, because I say
copies.
It's all about, to say, it's like breaching what Todd said about the alphabet. It's like, I got taught many years ago, because obviously it used to be 26 letters to the alphabet. And our dear old friend Gary, he said, when he was teaching, doesn't do much nowadays, he said, there's 26 letters to the alphabet. You need D-O-G to spell dog. You need that on that one to play that phrase, kind of thing. So, learn them so they just basically just reel off, isn't it, in that kind of rudiment. So I think there was... there's quite a few questions on that, really. Hi, AJ. Nice to see you again. Rob, do you have any kind of tips for? It's like I don't like calling it the weaker hand, man. It's the unused hand, and I'll explain why after. But have you got any sort of top tips really for the unused hand?
Well, I think when you're on the pad, I was just thinking of this actually just before the drum camp we did. And I did a little thing on it there. I think what I like to work on is 16th notes. Don't think about the phrasing, but just snare to first tom. But I don't go up with my right hand. I make sure my left hand goes up to make that phrase. So that means sometimes I'm going to have to start with my right to do what I need to do. Sometimes I have to start with my left to get the sound that I'm hearing. Because like Todd said, there's rhythms within the rhythms and there's melodies within the stickings. An inverted paradiddle is different from a single paradiddle. And when you play them on different drums, you can hear that quite specifically. So what I like to do is sit there and work on these ideas. I don't worry about crossovers, that can come later, just from snare to tom. And I can do that on my practice pad. So I'm actually working on some stuff at the moment, some exercises which will be part of sort of my teaching thing that I'm doing, where I'm getting the hands to accent certain things to actually create melody. And not just accents, but actually create the melody. And then there'll be bars where there's nothing and it comes back in again. So there's things you can actually connect to. So when you get to the drum kit, you put those on toms, on the cymbals with the bass drum, make them into linear, hand to feet or whatever. And all of a sudden you create something that, like Todd was doing, is extremely melodic. So you're soloing without even thinking about it, or your phrasing, I like to call it, becomes melodic. You just can't help it. But there's always going to be some drummers that see it as a speed exercise, and that's fine. We need those guys to sit there and do all that stuff. That's brilliant. But then there's the other side, which I think are searching for music within their instrument, and I find that's a good way to create it. So get your left hand to accent more, move around the kit a bit more. Obviously, just one hand practice. I used to do the same thing, just sitting there with a practice pad, just tapping away with a brush, on an old record sleeve, just sitting there tapping away. That stuff's all brilliant, just make it work. But it's not, as you're about to say, I don't think it's a weaker hand anyway. I think that's already putting you on the back foot. Look at it in a different way. But Matt, you can now take over with your method.
Well, I'm not going to talk about drumming. It's like holding a pair of sticks, because obviously that is, the be all and end all. It's like, how do we do it? But for me, when I call it the unused hand, is that I was about 12. I think I was high school, walking around, and you know, I had this thing with my drum teacher, and it's like, you know, why isn't it like getting used to? And I got told as a kid when I was a baby, so like, they didn't know if I was going to be left or right hand because I'm quite ambidextrous anyway. I can do like stuff, you know, with both hands, paint, like screw, and you know all this kind of stuff, mechanics wise. But it was a conscious thing that's like, you know, why am I really good with this hand? Well, it's because it's my dominant size, my dominant hand. I'm using it all the time. So that got me thinking, well, why don't I try and do everything I do with my right hand a day-to-day living with my left hand as well, to get it used to actually doing something rather than actually like just basically just picking a stick up and trying to do something with it. So you actually get like, you know, you're using it so you can like even start holding a mug, undoing a doorknob, you know, it's like carrying a bag on your shoulder, answering the, you know, day-to-day things like actually getting your left hand to physically do something. So when it comes to, you know, sitting down actually playing, you know, if you play match grip and all that kind of stuff, it, you know, it feels like, oh, I can actually do something with this hand rather than going, I can't physically think about it, you know, with that motion. It's like, you know, trying to trigger that to there. Because you're physically doing something with that hand every single day anyway. And I found that to be quite beneficial for me. I'd say, you know, it's just isn't my personal feeling about it. It's because when it came to it, it's like it was used to doing things. So then I just had to train it to actually then hold a stick, how the bounce works and everything else. And then they become very, very even. So whether you play that way or if it's, you know, any kind of way, I tell Todd this, that, you know, I generally play slight traditional, for a very sort of orchestral kind of way, so I had an orchestral background, but it was very sort of German kind of thing, and then obviously the French temporally. But these guys know, as I said before. But Todd, I use slightly different one when orchestrally and timpani play, and it's halfway between the French and the German. I call it Luxembourg. Pete?
Hey!
Where's me ba-boom ching? Where's me ba-boom ching? Come on! That wasn't there, was it? Come on! Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
Can I play devil's advocate for a moment?
Go on then.
Well, one of the things that we always hear, and God bless him, I love the guy, the Jim Chapin technique video cassette that came out in the early 90s that Dom was such a part of making happen. Like so many other things, is always stressing getting uniformity of sound between your two hands. But my thing, I call it independence of dynamics. If I'm playing bebop, I don't want my ride cymbal and my left hand to be at the same volume, because it's not going to sound balanced. If I'm playing funk, I don't want my hi-hat to be up at the same volume as my bass drum or my snare drum. And it's all about taking your four limbs and being able to mix yourself like 4 channels on a mixing desk, and going beyond the technique thing, thinking, how does this all, what is the musical function of what our 4 limbs are doing? Is the bass drum at the front of the mix? Is the ride cymbal at the front of the mix? Is the backbeat at the front of the mix? And just being able to balance yourself so that you sound authentic. And one of the things I listen to when I'm listening to any good drummer and any recording, doesn't matter what the style is, I listen, and you know, I have, it feels like I'm going over old ground here. I think I may have brought this up in previous episodes of this global phenomenon that is Palace Drum Chat. It is having the right balance between your 4 limbs so that your mix, before it even gets to a microphone, your mix sounds good. So, you know, so the front of house engineer, so the recording engineer doesn't have to do too much to your sound, that it's already there, that you kind of hear the overall balance of what's coming off your 4 limbs as being like a good musical, you know, ready mixed kind of sound.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's giving you some kind of helpful tips, really.
Can I just chime in for a second? Pete, you hit the nail on the head there, because I always talk about that in my master classes. If you have to mix yourself from your kit, if you sound great here, you sound great to the dude next to you over here, you sound great over here, and the front of house guy, if there is one, just goes, well, I just need to make everything louder. They don't have to do anything. If you're a funk drummer or a rock drummer and you've got a real weak bass drum and everything's up here and it's weak down there, then the front house guy is now moving the kick drum, or now they're killing the overheads because there's so much hi-hat in the snare mic, and you're putting your sound in the hands of someone else.
All day long, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree 100% on that.
Great. Tom, hi gang. Can I ask? Of course you can. Who were Todd's first influences, and does he find difference between English style of playing to American styles?
Let me go with the first influences. Would be my father, who was a drummer, as big band drummer. And Buddy Rich, he used to let me stay up late and watch him on the talk shows here. Danny Serafin on Chicago 2. I would sit with that record, and I'd sit with Basie Plays Hefty with Sonny Payne, and I would listen to those on my Mickey Mouse record player all day long. Those would be like the very first like players when I was literally, in I guess in nappies, they say over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, diapers.
Diapers.
And sorry, and what was the second part of the question?
Second part was, do you find difference between English styles to American styles?
No, other than I love, some English drummers I absolutely adore, and some of my favorites. Phil Collins, Simon Phillips, Mark Brzezicki, Mel Gaynor, Gary Husband. I could kind of go on and on. I think it's, rhythm is a universal language, and I don't think countries or borders really change things that much. I mean, I guess you could delve deeper into it than I certainly just did there, but no, and I have a lot of British drums in my collection as well, so I feel a kinship with the whole British drummer thing, I suppose.
Great, excellent. We've got a couple of questions which actually come from Instagram. David says, what has been your best experience in your tenure with Styx, Todd?
Best experience? Wow. It's crazy to end up in a band that I saw 3 times as a kid growing up and had their records. I couldn't possibly author that. And, there's a bit of a charmed life that comes with that association of being able to end up playing on other people's records because of that, or being able to meet some of my heroes because of that, or, over the years, whether it was, Journey, Def Leppard, Foreigner, Heart, Peter Frampton, like on and on and on. I've toured with and done shows with and been on bills with the rock radio of my youth. So it's crazy, bad company. To have toured and befriended so many people, that's really the wonderful human experience of it.
Right. He also says, what other musicians are on the new album?
The new Styx record or my record?
He doesn't say. So let's talk about both. Go on, then. Plug them both.
There's no one on any of them.
Sorted. Okay, amazing. So we've got, as I say, we've got a few from Instagram, which is new to me, so it's fantastic. What it says, with the level of playing, does he? This is for Todd, and we can open it to all of us really. It's like, have you ever feel like you hit the wall with your playing, and also some good tips for drummers who feel they may have hit the wall in their own playing? So, I suppose we can open this up to everybody. So, when you're out there doing, your day jobs, every single time you come to it, is there a place where you think that, you've hit the wall, or I don't know exactly what I mean, but hit the wall, but maybe, I don't know, it's like, you feel like you're not on par, maybe. I think that's what I'd like to hit the wall. But Rob, do you want to answer that question first, Rob?
Are you talking about on the stage or just generally?
I think so. With the level of playing, do we all ever feel it's like you've hit the wall when you're playing? So I think it's I don't know. I personally feel like I do hit a lot of walls when I'm in the practice room. Never outside, because obviously you're trying to push yourself basically in the practice room.
Yeah, I think the practice room is the place. And yeah, but we sort of talked about this a bit last week as well, didn't we? I like to keep the plate spinning. I like to keep things moving around. I like to challenge myself a little bit, and sometimes I'll go on YouTube and borrow some ideas, like we all do from somebody, or get inspired by somebody who says you should check out this. and take a little bit of that on board and run with it. But I try not to do too much of that, really, because you end up trying to sound like everybody else and stuff. So it does happen. But that I'm 50 this year, and we've all
You're
been.
not.
Oh,
Oh, is that why the beard's gone? Is that what? That's all coming now. So that's why the beard's gone. You're younger.
But over the last, I guess, 20 years, I've just found ways of challenging myself not to ever feel like I'm hitting a wall. I don't like that sort of negativity of that. I understand exactly what the question is, and I'm sure when I was younger, I used to feel like I was probably hitting a few more of them with my playing. But over the years, I just keep challenging myself and just trying to better myself and be more musical in my playing. And I think if you think very openly like that, I think there's no end to what you can do, and you kind of get stuck in your own little bubble of creativity. And that's kind of what I did way back in the day when I was trying to sound like Clive Deamer or Ian Matthews or or Eddie John. Great players in my area who've now gone to do various things. Good things too. You end up trying to play like somebody else, and it was no good. So I had to lock myself away, get in my bubble, and kind of work on my own stuff. So since I found that sort of creative bubble, I would suggest when I do clinics and stuff to say, find your bubble and enjoy that space in it and keep exploring what you feel is good. If you don't think it's, if you've never heard it before, you think, oh, should I be doing this? Do it, because you might be you're breaking through something for yourself. There might be someone down the road who's going to go, oh yeah, Tony Williams did that in 1975 with on that Believe It album. But who cares? That's not what it's about. It's about you personally pushing yourself forward with your own creativity. And I think in the end, the wall just goes further and further away, and actually you wish you could actually touch it in the end, but it's just always endless, and you never find that you're hitting it anymore.
Does anyone else want to jump in with that one at all? No? Okay, moving on.
Sure. I mean, we all have moments where we might feel like, I'm tired of hearing what I'm playing right now. What's going on? And I very rarely feel like there's a wall, because there's always something to learn and work on. For me, it's having the time, even now, to be able to work on the things that I want to do. But one reason why I have all this stuff behind me is, if for whatever reason I come out here and something's not happening, I change out a snare drum and I change out a ride cymbal, and all of a sudden it's a new landscape. So a lot of times the sounds will dictate and push me in a different direction. So I have 3 different kits set up. If I'm feeling like this, I got the little jazz kit here, or I got the ridiculous 70s concert time kit over there. What mood am I in? That will help me stay completely focused on something, or be thrown into a new direction. But I'm never bored.
I suppose when you get bored, there's something wrong, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get bored in here, it's just time to just end it.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Drumming wise, guys. That's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hello, Richard. We've got a few hosts: Terry Steele, Aaron, Derek Moore. Hello, guys. Rob Clark. Nice to. There was a good question here. I suppose. I can do. I'll tell you where it was. It was actually on Instagram. So let's go to there. It says, I think so. After years of touring for many years, how do you find the balance of family and what you do to deal with the downtime when on the road? Todd, I want to come to you first, because obviously I think that was aimed for you, because it's for Todd. But I think we've all got our different downtimes, haven't we? Especially on the road. We've done it for many years. So Todd, how do you find the balance? I suppose with your personal life as well as your day job.
Everything in life is constantly some sort of balance of something or another. So it's no different with this. Under normal circumstances and normal life, my job is to be away from home. And with, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we've always made it not a big deal when I leave. It's never been like, oh, Daddy's gonna miss you. And it's, so it's not this big heavy thing. Okay, bye, Dad. I leave. I go do my thing and I come back. The way I look at it is, if I had some sort of office job that I hated, and I was gone from 8 until 5. I'd come home and my daughter would just get the scraps of me, and I'd put her to bed, and then long before I'd have to go to bed too. So when I'm home, I'm home. And that time is, well, what do you want to do? What do we all want to do? So that's the balance of making that work. Also being in a band with a guy like Lawrence Gowan, whose children grew up. I've been in a band 24 years. He's been in a band 20 years. But he had 2 little kids who are now grown up. You know, one's a doctor now, and he missed birthdays and whatnot. And I say, how do you do that? And he'd say, well, we'll have her birthday when I come home. And he was very zen about it, and not, you know, sitting there being miserable all day, like, I can't believe I'm not there. You know, everything is the way that you look at it and approach it, and you mentally process it, and find that balance. But it's not always easy, but it's what you have to do, or it won't work.
Yeah. A couple of highs. Hi, Eduardo. Hi, Rachel. Pete, you're here, there, and everywhere. Well, you used to be here, there, and everywhere. It's like getting, because obviously, you know,
I was making each day of the year.
Yeah, yeah. So, what was your? I think we talked about the first one about yeah, about our downtimes kind of thing. But I suppose, especially when you're touring, your downtime is for me. You're doing something different from what you normally would be doing. Is that the same case for you?
Well, I haven't really toured in such a long time now that it's so, I can't remember the last time I did a full-on day after day after day after day tour. It's probably 25 years. And of more recent times, I've kind of rebalanced things so that I consider myself extremely fortunate that, you know, prior to the circumstances in which we now find ourselves, I've been very lucky that I've been able to just go and do the things that I want to do. And I'm never happier than when I'm sitting here, you know, really getting inside the instrument, the techniques, concepts, and all of that is designed to drive what I'm going to do when I go back to playing. And I spent a lot of years in the 1990s when I was just freelancing around London, playing a lot of music that I didn't like very much. And it was like all this stuff that I'm doing now, or, you know, this personal stuff, you know, creative stuff, various projects and the band and everything else that I've done, it was all like a little kind of side project. And the side project actually became, I suppose, in the late 1990s, the side project, the thing that I would do. I'd have a rehearsal on a Tuesday morning and do a gig every other Sunday afternoon. That side project actually became the center of my working life. And I must be one of the luckiest guys ever to have been able to do that. And I'm very grateful for it as well. Mm. And I think every one of us, no matter how deep into the, you know, for the want of a better expression, the musical rat race we may find ourselves, you should always have that little thing on the back burner at home that's just for you, that's just about why you learned to play. Why did you get inspired, motivated to get good at this in the first place? And for me, as I say, I consider myself to be one of the luckiest guys in the industry, because all those things that, you know, like when you're 6 years old, what do you want to be? You want to be Superman or Batman or an astronaut or something. That drummer that I wanted to be when I was 6 years of age is exactly who I am now. Damn, no regrets at all. None at all.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
So do you have any downtime? So I suppose you said so you don't really have to have downtime because you're just loving it the whole kind of way. And because what you do is yeah.
Listen, downtime is a blessing. I was talking about the 1990s a while ago, and about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after I moved to London, and and it sounds like a ridiculous thing by modern standards, I got a full-time road jazz gig, and we were out playing all the time, week in, week out, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, and I was managing to fit a few things around that. And then in the early part of 1997, it all just suddenly stopped, very abruptly. I can't say I hadn't seen it coming, but it was that downtime that occurred right then that enabled me to release my first solo album. And had I not released my first solo album, you'd probably be talking to somebody else now. And rather than going down the pathway of going into the London theatres, which I had the opportunity to do, and in a moment of extreme, I don't know, the last vestiges of youthful hot-headedness, I turned down, and I said, no, I don't want to go that way. I want to be this player, and because even at that point, I'd done like 2.5 years on the road playing jazz all the time, and I just felt I've got one hand on actually being that drummer I dreamed I might be when I was 6, 7, 8 years old.
Rob, you've obviously got a young family now.
Yeah.
Is the balance good for you?
It's you have to ask my wife. I don't know what we're answering this question. We should be asking our wives. I mean, that's the trick.
Next week, PD Chat Show is our other halves.
Like this. Rob's not in right now. Well, it is difficult, and it's about getting that balance. And when you are home, making sure, like Todd said, you are actually around to do stuff. And sometimes it's difficult. You come out of that bubble and nobody cares anymore. You're back home and no one cares if you play, the Royal Albert Hall last night or wherever. Who cares? No one cares. You're back with your family, and it's a different circle. This is a different thing. This isn't to do with showbiz and stuff. This is your family. This is your life. This is, bloodline. And I'm not saying it's easy. I find it very difficult. Fox will come running and say, "Daddy, Daddy," the next day, and you might just come back at 3 a.m. from Heathrow, and it's 6 in the morning. You've slept on the settee because you don't want to wake up, your wife upstairs, whatever. And he's like, "Daddy, Daddy, let's play Star Wars. Let's do this." And it's like, But then within half an hour, you're like, "This is beautiful. This is my life," And I think when I was younger, I found it hard to do the switch. So I was single for a long, long, long time. Partners coming and going and rock and roll.
So every port, yeah.
Well, tattoos everywhere, every single name you can think of. So over the last 6 years, it's been very different for me, and I've sort of grown up a little bit. But it is really hard, and those phone calls on the road. You're about to go on stage, and Fox is kicking off. Don't know what you're going to do about that. It's like, oh my god, I got to go and play. These things happen, and it's life, and you find ways of making it work. And I think you have to remember that when you're away from home, you're living your dream, but somebody else is, bringing up a family for you or doing something. And when you come home, it's important to make, all the time to make them feel important and, provide and do what you need to do. And it's a hard balance. It's
a hard balance, isn't it? Yeah. Simon Wagstaff says hello. Hi guys. Todd, you don't know Simon. Simon is he runs this the Vintage Show, one of the best it's the Vintage and Custom shows in the UK. It happens in October. Fingers crossed, it's going to happen this year. I hope it will, because it's such a great event. So thanks, Simon. We've got a question from Todd from
Matt, real quick, but before we change subjects, I just want to mention one thing. I recently heard a story because Styx's last record is called The Mission. We've had a lot of friendships with people at NASA, and we've had a lot of NASA and astronauts and stuff coming to shows. And one story from an astronaut, I won't name who it is, but was talking about the balance. Like, here's a guy that was in frigging space. He comes home, he's with his wife pulling into the driveway of his house, and he looks and he sees there's a tarp on the roof, and he goes, what's going on? His wife says, there's a hole in the roof. He goes, why didn't you call the guy? And his wife goes, you're the guy. You know, so like, you got done playing some rock shows? You know, like this guy came in space, fix the hole.
That is so true. Yeah.
So sorry, I've been in space.
Yeah. I've been a bit busy. Yeah.
I wasn't popping out for milk. I've been gone for X months. I always wanted to say this, but hello, Mum and Dad. There we go. So they've done it. Just going back to reality. From Todd, from Bill Mellison. Hi, Todd. I took your masterclass in NH. I learnt so much. Your grip instruction changed my playing for the good, improved my speed drastically. I had no idea I was holding the sticks incorrectly all these years. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. So there we are. It's a lovely comment from there. And Simon, I'll have to agree with you. Martin has actually put he spends too much money at Simon's show. You can't spend too much money at Simon's show. I spend Rob's money too much.
You spend my money,
yeah. I spent. Last week we were talking about this. At the show we had some fantastic stuff. Rob Cook is a good friend of ours, Todd, who comes over. You know Rob very well. He's come over a few times, and I took Rob up, and I said, Rob, hi. I said, Rob, and I said, oh, you want to get this book? This because he brought loads of books over from with Winnie as well from Holland, Mensink, and it was like, oh, you want this book? This book's great. So I ended up piling up this big, and Rob was shocked. He said, well, I'm going on tour. I've got plenty of time to read it. Were they worth it, Rob?
Yeah, and they're all down there on my drum bookshelf, and they're all signed by Rob, and I got my picture with him. What a lovely man. Thank you.
Never spend too much money at these. To be honest, actually, next week, we're not stopping now, guys, but next week we've got our dear friend Ian Palmer on, and which we're going to be talking about the drum camps and actually drum shows as well, and the importance of them within the drumming calendar. That's an insight for next week. Hi, Ricky from Swindon. I would like to ask Todd a question, if you don't mind. This is I have the privilege because I can do anything I want. When you
just don't.
All right. When you said earlier, it's like about when you board them, so you get stuck on. You grab a snare drum from the rack. Now I can see you've only got a couple behind you. Which one do you go to say, "Hello, I'm home"?
This is going to sound whatever. Different ones they'll kind of call out to me, or if it's an old friend that I haven't had a conversation with in a while, and I'll pull out something, or I'm feeling a certain way. I can't quantify the decisions, but something will just kind of call out to me, pick me out. You haven't played me in a while, and I'll do that. And I never just play it for a little while and then do something else. I'll spend some time with it. I know what each one of my drums can do. I know them very intimately, and what they excel at. So that's kind of, I know it's an esoteric answer, but that's kind of how it is. Something will just call out to me. It's time for a change of rotation.
So there's not one particular one that's like, it's one particular for that most probably mindset you have at the time.
No, I mean, I think I've got 114 snare drums in here, and it's
only, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's certain things that I'll just feel I need this type of thing. It's like food, you know what I mean? Sushi, right? Perhaps Chinese, perhaps pizza, perhaps Italian. It kind of has that sort of rotation in a way.
Yeah. David Hunt's watching. Hi, Dave. How you doing? I did notice there's a few British snare drums. I actually sneakily looked onto your gallery because obviously we can see them there, but it's hard to pick out which ones are which. But you've got a couple of premieres and a little company called the British Drum Company as well, a Merlin, I believe. What do you think to the English drums?
I love them. I got 3 VKs. Alan Van Cleef, a Provenance, a drum made from a 1973 Rolls Royce.
Tim. Yeah,
Tim. How do you pronounce Tim's last name?
Broughton.
That's what I thought. Okay. So I have 2 Tim's drums. And I just acquired 2 drums from John Hammond, Serenity drums. And one in particular has 3 woods, Amazonian greenheart, Belinga, and Azobe. And those 2 African woods were on Teddington Lock, right by the TV film studio. So those have been walked on by the Beatles, Peter Sellers, Benny Hill. Monty Python filmed the fish slapping dance on.
That's right.
That's a great sketch.
So, well, the funny thing when I first talked to John, he mentioned that wood, and I said, "Oh my God, Lawrence from Styx, just in that time, boy, this would have been November, he'd taken to fish slapping each other right before the show. Would be bit by a swim, and invariably one of us would prance up to the other and just go." So I knew I had to have a drum made from that wood, but it's a brilliant drum. He's got the English Britannia pennies from 1906 to 1921 adorning the lugs. That one's not up on the site, but it should be by the end of the week.
Right. Have you got any holes in your rack for more?
No, I'm sort of full.
So you need another like some
Well,
more holes, basically.
I can right up there.
There's always space.
Everything's full here.
Yeah, we call it a disease over here. We have disease to start collecting stuff like that.
I mean, if Buddy Rich could come back from the grave and said, "Todd, I want you to have my 1971 Slingerlands," I'd be full.
Yeah, but in 1971, he was playing a 5 snare drum.
That true.
That is true. Yeah.
Very true, very true. I'm going to ask the questions to the other guys as well. Is there a go-to? Because we all have. Let's not say, because obviously our wives may be listening. We've all got drums. My wife says, so you can feed the kids, it's fine, and pay the mortgage. But if you've got like a go-to one that's like you got like in that mood, or it's like, do you know what, that one, it's going to do everything for me, because I know what I'm doing. Pete, have you got a go-to one?
Yes.
Right, Rob?
No. Well, yes, but mine's always, the project that I'm doing at the time, actually. And if I was just going to practice at the studio, I would just take my little DW jazz kit or something, and maybe a few snares, and see how I feel when I got there. And same with the cymbals. Yeah.
I'm gonna have a little punt at yours, Pete. Would it be Luddy by any chance?
Black Beauty.
Contractual affiliations prohibit me from discussing.
It's a vintage. It's vintage. You see, we're talking about vintage. Yeah.
I do have some very special snare drums here, and certain things. Sometimes certain things will work, will never let you down, and then sometimes you just want to play something else just because of what you're going to be playing, or just because of how you feel.
I must admit, I've been very fortunate this week. For people who don't know me, so the day of lockdown here on that Monday at 12 o'clock, I went into my theatre where we do the Palace Drum Clinics in Redditch, home with John Bonham. And I set up my kit, took my kids in. I set up the kit because I had this grandeur going in every day, practicing, got lots of time and everything else. And it's the kit where I actually don't practice on because I've practiced on loads of my vintage stuff, but this is quite a modern one. So I thought, right, now's the chance, set it all up, get some nice brand new cymbals, Sicilian cymbals I haven't played before, so I get those out, brilliant. And then obviously 10 weeks later, I was still sitting at home. But I managed to get in this week, and I take a couple of snares, and I just keep coming back to the same one, keep swapping. It's like I love all my snares because obviously that's why you have them. But it's the 1964 Gretsch round badge that actually it took me 18 months to overhaul. I bought it very, very cheaply because it literally was just a shell, original wrap with one original hoop at the top hoop, high and low, beg, borrowing, stealing stuff, here, this, here, and I managed to get it together. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and Do you know what? I've been in twice this week to the theatre, and I started playing on my one I always have on that kit. Sounds fantastic. It looks great as well. You know, aesthetics when you're behind it, it feels, it just and I just like just put it over, and I was just like, oh man, this is just it's I don't know whether it's just like a passion of love that it took me so long to actually put it together, or it's just the physically playing of it. It's like, do you know what? If I had one snare drum for the rest of my life, that'll be it, kind of thing. So that's me. We've got some more questions. We can't physically do this, but hi Hugo, Rick is watching as well. Can we hear about the team playing Slingerland and experience and talk about the sound? Well, I haven't got Slingerland drum kit to play on. I think the only one in the room is Todd. You've got a little Slingerland kit just next to you, haven't you?
This was my father's last kit and my first. I learned how to play in 1969 Slingerland with a rare 18-inch bass drum. I never knew that until I talked to Rob Cook actually years and years ago, that he said, "Wow, Slingerland didn't make too many 18-inch bass drums." So yeah, I spend as much time on that kit as I do on anything in here. I love it. I love the fact that I've had Vinny Colaiuta play that kit and Danny Serafin play that kit, and my father. So that
beautiful.
Out of anything in this room, that would be the thing I would save in a fire. I mean the sentimental value of that is just through the roof.
Yeah, definitely. We've got good question here. Simon Wagstaff, just to let you know, Simon Wagstaff, obviously in a vintage drum show. I think he's almost got one of the biggest collections, could be in Europe, of Slingerland drums now, kit. So when you come over, Todd, you have to go and look at his collection. And he's got some absolute rarities in there as well, and they're actually beautiful.
Yeah.
So we'll sort that out when you come over. We've got another question here. When listening to a song, do any of you get put off from listening to the song if the drum sound is bad, or the sound is general?
No. I mean, I get sent loads of tracks with. And the artist says, "Oh, don't listen to the programmed drums; they're terrible." Or "Don't listen to this." And the thing is, I always say, "Don't worry," because I'm not. The minute I could feel the tempo, the feel, it's there as a template, but I'm already imagining what I would like to play on it and what you want me to play on it. So for me, it's never a problem. Never a problem at all. So they can send me one with that drums and one without if they want. But if I just get the MP3 with the drums on it, I've got no issue with that.
I think what Colin was saying, maybe not necessarily, it's like, wants to learn, so actually maybe sort of tracks out there at the moment, in the big wide world. Would you, so like for instance, if you heard, because I know you're a big fan of Prince, if you heard, which there isn't, but if you did hear a completely flat drum kit on there, would you go, "Oh no, I'm not listening to that track"?
No, because having made music for so many years, sometimes I think the listener doesn't sometimes always understand why a certain person went for that drum sound. And it doesn't mean that that's going to be successful for everybody just because the band or the musicians thought, "Oh, it should be this kind of sound." But, I always, being the other side of it, I think, well, there's a reason they've gone for that kind of drum sound. Whether it sounds that sort of sound where they sound like they're two doors away, or whether it's really in your face, like that hi-hat on System Strut, man. That is just, it's like playing it with a hammer. But it's just absolutely beautiful the way it sounds on the track, But is it balanced well? Not particularly, but does that matter? No, because he's an amazing player and it sounds great on the track. So, I'm always very slow to pick on sounds when people make records because people have got ideas, and they might not just be yours. So I'm really open to that.
Yeah, when you're I guess not to make it sound too inelegant, but a hired hand and you're booked to play on somebody else's record. You just like we all do when we go to work, we just try to do our best. We just try to do our best at all times. And sometimes, you come back and you'll do a date. It might be a just one track, or it might be a whole album, and you've given it everything you can do. You played great, and what was going on in the studio felt really good. And then somebody else gets their hands on it further down the line, and it comes back. And I've been so disappointed by records that I know that what we did in the studio is absolutely not represented by the finished product that comes out the other end. And somebody else has got an idea of how they want it to sound and what they want it to be. And sometimes you just have to relinquish ownership of that a tiny little bit and think, well, okay, if it was me, I would have done it differently. But when it's somebody else's date and you're there to do a job and play the music to the best of your ability, it's sometimes you just don't want to kind of have too much invested in what the end product's going to sound like, because the guy whose name it is on the front of the record, or the producer, or whoever, they might have a certain idea about what they want that's completely different from how you hear it, how you heard it when you were playing it. And sometimes you just have to kind of let go of that and kind of look beyond that. I remember doing a particular session with a quite a hit band at the time called Oi Voy. And when it came, and it was the playing was great, and the band in the studio was really on it. And when it came back, the producer had just taken 2 bars of mine that he liked and just looped it the whole way through the song. And that's fine. You paid me. I did what you wanted, and once I've given you that that track, you go and do what you want with it.
Yeah. Hi, Zach. Hi, Corey. Zach Lever. Todd, you're a great inspiration. How was the recording process, vocals on your solo album? I must, if people don't know, you've just launched a solo album.
Yes. It was just a complete experiment to see if I could do something that I didn't know that I could do. An old buddy of mine, J.K. Harrison, had been cajoling and harassing me for a number of years to do a record, and I always blew him off with the feeling of, gee, that's cute that you think that I could do this, but thanks, but no thanks. But he just hit me at a particular time, I had a week in Los Angeles, and I thought, oh, what the hell, let's get together and see what happens. And the fact that things came together so quickly, and we wrote, especially the song Last Flight Home, that was done in a half hour. That was lightning back and forth, and one of those magical nights that, I'll always remember. You think, gee, I wish, hey, songwriting's fun. I wish it was always this easy. And so basically this like yellow brick road started to materialize, and I just had to get out of my own way. And the idea of singing terrified me, but I also thought, well, maybe that's where I should be. Maybe I need to be out of my comfort zone and not do some sort of drum-centric, fusion record where I'm soloing in between kicks. Maybe I'll do that down the road. But I just played on a bunch of instrumental records, and that itch had been scratched. So basically, working with JK, it was trying to learn how to sing on the job by someone who's a great producer and a great singer. So that was a great guide. I've known him for years and years, so I could metaphorically stand naked in front of him and just suck and have him go, okay, now think about, he'd bring up some other singer. Think about pronouncing the vowels here. Okay, do that. Okay, good. Now that sounds like an imitation. Now do it and mean it. Connect yourself to the lyric. So, the thing about singing is you have to not only sing in tune, sing in time, but you have to connect yourself emotionally to each lyric and then connect all the lyrics together as a believable story. So that was really the challenge, to see if I could do that and be proud of every music, every note, every bar, every line, and stand behind all 10 songs and go, yep, I'm going to put my name on this. And I found that to be intriguing, enticing, exciting, and terrifying all at once. And I like that combination.
Good. There's got a question here from Jack Perrett. Todd, now we've heard you singing, will we hear Taylor playing the drums?
No, that's one thing I can say for sure. No. So one quick thing about my wife, which is just from a human aspect, is fascinating. 21 years we've been together. There's only been one time ever she sat down and took a stick to a drum. What human would not be curious about getting behind a drum set and at least going ting, whack, okay? The answer is always no. We had a Halloween party here when PASIC was in Austin in 2012, where the last people left at about 6 o'clock in the morning. About 4 o'clock in the morning, she got on a drum set for the first time in all the years I've known her and has not since. So will Taylor be playing the drums? That is a hard no.
We've got a quick one for Todd again. Kenneth says, hi Todd, which bands did your dad play for?
My dad was one of the house drummers at the Chez Paris nightclub in Chicago for 18 years. So that was basically like the Cotton Club of Chicago. So he's played with everyone from Sammy Davis Jr. to Liberace to Joey Lewis. He did tour with Lena Horne for a while in the 40s and did the South, where she had to stay at a different hotel than the guys in the band. But he was a doctor, so he had a successful practice, and he couldn't really take the road work that most guys that were full-time drummers could do. So he stayed close to home, which was Chicago, and one of the reasons why in almost 20 years he was one of the house drummers at the Chez Paris.
Right, as I say, you had basically running there, weren't you? Really, so with the inspiration, it was amazing. Bill Menison says, any advice on preparing, beg your pardon, it's so small, can't read, I don't need glasses, I just can't read, mentally, so any advice on preparing mentally for the studio? Rob, I know you're studio man, aren't you? How do you prepare mentally for that?
As we said before in one of the other sessions, just make sure I've got all the stuff that I need in time, so I know what I'm doing and what equipment I need to bring, all that kind of professional stuff, and just get my head together that the minute I walk into that room, you know, I'm giving myself to the artist and the music, and to the point where a little while ago, actually, somebody asked me, they said, look, you play traditional, and we love traditional, we're digging that, it's great, but do you mind playing it match grit? And I was like, why? They said, because it might just give it a certain edge, because you won't feel as comfortable. And they were laughing as they said it. And I said, yeah. So I put the snare around a different way. We changed the mic setup. And I thought, I haven't done this since I was like 10 when I tried it, you know, to see what it was like. So I saw Ringo do it. And, you know, there was a certain character they got because I wasn't quite as confident. So there was a certain sort of naive quality they got from my playing on the track. And I think if you can just go into that room with that headspace of we're here to create music, it's not Rob Ryan playing drums on Simple Minds or whatever. You go in to play the music. And if someone says, look, your DW or Sonor kit is lovely, but you know what? We've got this house kit, this Pro export. And you go, really? But it sounds great in this room with these mics. Do you mind? You just go, hey, you know, let's try it. And I love all that experimentation with it. So I think just ego at the door, go in there ready as a free spirit to make music and just see where it takes you. You know, because you've done all the prep, the other stuff, you know, we've talked about that before. So I think that's definitely how I get my head in the game. And then I enjoy what happens next. And 12 hours later, you come out and think, my God, what just happened? You know, something wonderful happened between 12 people or 6 people or 3 people, whatever, you know.
Yeah. Pete, do you have the same thing or is there something else you do differently?
I think it's just about how you feel about yourself as much as anything, is just having the quiet confidence to be as prepared as you can be and know that whatever comes your way in that environment, you can deal with it. And it's really, if you think you can do it, you probably will. And if you think you can't do it, you probably won't. And it's not about being arrogant or being overtly overconfident, but just having the quiet confidence, knowing that you're prepared for the job, that you have the requisite skills, that you can be open to what people want from you as a musician and be adaptable. And the more you know, the broader your range as a musician, the more likely you are to come up with a meaningful and satisfying result at the end of the day. And I'm sorry for saying at the end of the day, because it's the most shocking feature.
Shocking at the end of the day. Todd, do you is there anything that you prepare differently to what Pete and Rob have said at all? Or?
I concur both with Pete and Rob. I mean, really, we're in the service industry, that's how I look at it. If they ask me to play something a certain way, or could we try the garbage snare drum with the pinstripe with a piece of carpet on it? Whatever you want to do, I will do. I've never been a no man, that's not my sound. You know, you hired me for me type of guy.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I want to make the artist and the producer happy, or whatever the situation is. So you just have to have an open mind and an open ear. One thing I've always done, especially if the music has lyrics, I want to know the lyrics. I will say that's more important to me than a chart. What's the song about? Is it a happy song, a sad song? Then I can be part of the storytelling process. And because music is more than 8-bar intro, 8-bar verse, get louder, crash, go to the right symbol for the chorus. It's not a paint by number. You know, I want to be able to emotionally be part of the storytelling process with the artist if there are vocals to the track. So be subservient to the producer, artist, and what the story of the song is, and serve the music.
Definitely. Connor asks, this is for Todd. He's just joined a classic rock band and think they've got a great sound, but it's early days. Any advice for a new rock band starting out?
Do your thing. Follow your heart. Listen to other people. Get advice. But at the end of the day,
Hey!
you know, you don't want to sound like someone else, because whatever your favorite band is, they already exist. You know, you have to find what makes your group unique, and have your own thing going on, and hopefully it will resonate with others.
Yeah.
But you know, for me, I never put all my eggs in one basket with a band. I always knew that I could keep a full schedule as a working musician if I was diversified. I could play lots of different styles, and I wanted to be working and not just buying a lottery ticket and putting all my eggs in one basket with like 3 other knuckleheads and putting my future in their hands. You know, so that's one route that I never was comfortable taking.
Well, great advice from everyone. Thank you very much. I've just realised the time, so we could talk for hours and hours and hours. But Hugo asked, does anyone remember the great playing of Alan Dawson, rolling triplet style? Famous solo in '78, where the mounted tom fell off and the bass drum was creeping.
Yeah.
So the beauty of that kind of gear, but that might be another one for another year, another PD chat show about gear. So can I just say, guys, so we could talk for absolutely hours and hours. If you're new to the PD chat show, thank you ever so much for watching. Please like the page, because obviously then you get updates on everything. We're on Instagram as well. Also have a look at the website. There's lots of things coming up. I'm just looking at my calendar now. We've got some great people. Next week we've got Ian Palmer. We're going to be talking about everything. It's like how important it is, like things like drum camps and drum shows within the actual drumming calendar. So this will mostly be from October onwards, hopefully. And then we've got, and I'll tell you who, we've got some great lineup after that. So it's just for me to say thank you again to obviously Morris and pals and drummers Rob and Pete. Wealth of knowledge again. You'll see them next week. But it's just been an absolute honour and privilege just to have Todd on. So can we just thank Todd, everyone? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, you know, when you sort of obviously get to you know, get to know people and everything else through different paths and all that, it's so humbling to actually realise that you've got the same aims and goals and cheese. And I think for us drummers, coming back to one kind of thing, whether, you know, you're playing with a band who's sold, you know, umpteen million records, or you're just literally playing, you know, down there, it's like your local theatre or anything else. One thing that really spans throughout all of us really is that it's the music. We're playing music, guys, and I think throughout this evening, you can tell all the advice is beginnings. Like it's music that we play. You know, whether it's like, you know, learning the songs or singing the songs or, you know, everything. It's the music. It's like we're just so happy that we've got one of the best instruments to play on. But that's our opinion. So thank you guys for watching. So if you are watching this on repeat, can you hashtag replay, please? Like the page on the Facebook on the Palace Drum Clinic, and I will see you next week on another PD chat show. So again, thank you very much from Rob, Pete, and the amazing Todd Sucherman. Thank you very much, guys. You take care, and we'll see you next week. See you.